Oh, that worked okay. That's a great video Nancy did. I really enjoyed that video. It's over an hour long. It's really cool. Thank you, Nancy. That was awesome. Parapsychology, a question was sent to me by email, and that kind of thing. And who else? There's another question. Winhex. What's somebody talked about Winhex? That's I think it's Bob. Yeah, Bob Greener. That's kind of interesting technology, but let's go to parapsychology. My mother was psychic actually, and she unfortunately got involved without choice to the trials and tribulations of the LSD program sponsored by Sandow's company in the USA as well as in Canada. Dr. McFarlane, Dr. McLean decided to round her up and put her in Hollywood Hospital in New Westminster, British Columbia, where she had LSD treatments. Dr. Tomorrow has all the files in that. She was very psychic, and hopefully, I can get this into the. A journalist can cover this whole thing going back in history on that issue. So, alright, so other psychological things, or parapsychological things, many of them, actually. Oh, some witnessed by the New Westminster Police Department. Constable Ted Usher, head of the Serious Crime Investigation Group. But let me try and go across this vast stuff. A lot of the parapsychological stuff happens at 21 to 24 centimeter wavelength bands measured by Dr. Robert Jan, Princeton University, and others. Dr. William Tiller, Dr. Elizabeth Ann Roger, and many others. I guess the old generation has long died off, only a few others existing nowadays. There are a lot of good people like Boyd Bushman and Gordon Novell, Ken Shoulders, Dr. Roger, and many, many others that I have met in person and stayed with and enjoyed their company. So there's only a few left in this realm. Wow. Anyway, it's unusual. So parapsychological things that was brought to my attention. Somebody watched a video on Winhex. I'm going, Winhex is a device. You can read about it in Jerry Gallagher's book, Unusual Energies. It's been around for a while. Canadian Navy used it as well in some tests. I think it was Columbia. They left the stuff there, and I think I might even have some of it left over. This guy works at the Artificial Reef Society of British Columbia, Canada, and it's an interesting topic because it involves these unique vortexes that appear sometimes out of nowhere. There was a film of 9/11, the event in New York, where there was a circling weird wind thing carrying papers and other things on the street. And it's on YouTube somewhere. It's filmed by a news crew. I think the news guy was doing mostly Building 7 at the time. That might help you. Look under FOIA, that kind of thing. Uh, National Bureau of Standards, videos, 9/11, that kind of thing. You might find it. Anyway, those kind of things are not too unusual. I have seen them. Actually, the most dramatic was in 1985. I think it was 85, 86. Over my lab space at 3044. What was it? Never mind. Kingsway. 3744 Kingsway. The lab. After a demonstration, there was a massive amount of clouds going in a big spiral, and there's thunder and lightning. I had to get on my bike because I was going to Vancouver to visit Billy Ross, so that had to have been 84 maybe. And I had to outrun that thing. It was very dangerous. It caused a lot of water, lightning, and all that kind of stuff happening. Well, that's just one instance of this kind of weird stuff. which is intriguing because if you want to learn more about parapsychological events, I suggest you study Jack Houck of McDonnell Douglas Aerospace, a friend of mine who filmed me a long time ago, and others. But these events happened. I've seen them other times. Mrs. Murphy's, if Mark Murphy's still alive, he might remember those events that brought in lightning to melt his antenna, which was a quad antenna, and also I got shocked a bit with some lightning happening. That was a weird night because I had sleeping in the basement around some of the coils, and they were snapping on their own, and then I had to go outside and hide from all that. And then there was a massive explosion. You can check the North Shore News too to cover my story. Blew out a couple of trees next door. Unusual energies, so check that out. North Shore News covered a lot of things, so I was very active back then. So other parapsychological things is manifestations of things, which is one can do, but you can't be greedy about it or it'll backfire on you. I do that quite a bit, and it's sometimes surprising what happens. You just simply tap into an energy source in the great quantum dimensional areas. Let your mind go, and you can have a telephone or an iPad. I create well, I shouldn't say that I create. They happen. Things happen, okay, that are quite unique, and finding things at scrap price, let's say, okay? That's not normal, I don't think. Although it maybe is normal. Found a lot of stuff, by the way. But you can't abuse that kind of sourcing or it'll backfire on you. Guaranteed. You got to do it gently and softly. It's hard to describe this. The most dramatic parapsychological event, excuse me, was with, this is true, and maybe Yin Gazda can back some of it up. I don't know, but you might remember the stones that was sent to me from Fort Worth, Texas. William Warren warned me about this, came with all the documents about the Mansfield weapon and other stories. So these stones, Yin said, never work with them. Put them away somewhere, and I did, in a meteorite box for years. Then I brought them out, and Lama Lee, neighbor, got involved with these stones. They're tiny little stones like that. That she played with them and created some major events, and others started to get wind of it and were drawn to these stones, including Dr. Danny and others, biochemists. In that time frame, 1993, 94, 90, was it 90, that long ago now? Something like that, or 2004 or 3 or something. But for me, I didn't want to touch them. I just let people do what they want with them. Marianne Miller had them. I think Roland Brito saw them because he sent a student over to where I was, and he was quite interested in that too. There was others interested in it. What's his name? Jason had his carrying his 50 caliber Desert Eagle. He wanted to get him, and it got so much that others got involved. Nicole Whitney, News for the Soul TV, and CNN, Peter Williams, who filmed them and noticed the effects from them and documented. I guess Nicole Whitney or Peter Williams has the tapes. I don't, never really pursued the tapes. I might have copies of it too because they requested copies. I probably do, yeah. Those videos probably had that in them because everything was downloaded and didn't work out too well with Charlie. But anyway, so this got very involved to where one day I got a phone call from Constable Ted Usher of the New Westminster Police. I want to, talk to me down at the police station maybe tomorrow. Sometime something came up about some unusual stones kind of thing. I'm thinking, really? Hmm. Okay, I don't have the stones. Somebody else had them. Okay. So I called up Gene Manning, author and journalist, to come with me to see Ted Usher as a witness. I always like witnesses to document everything I say because who knows. And stones or something wound up at the old Montauk site, abandoned Air Force Base. Why, I don't know. You know, conspiracy theorists, people make things happen too, you know. Although it's not real, it can be quite interesting. So I don't know. All I know, the NYPD took a water cannon to the package. There was descriptions of the stones inside the package. We talked quite a bit about this and dilithium crystals and that kind of thing, which what they were called in the Mansfield weapon. So after that, Gene Manning and Ted Usher started talking about book writing and her book and his book on the history of the police station. But anyway, that being said, I asked Constable Ted Usher to keep that information. I said it could make a fun file for me to look at someday. But again, I never heard from him, so as time passed on, the Stones wound up with Nicole Whitney, apparently. But too many people witnessed what happened with them. So parapsychological things are fascinating. And manifestation of them can be very, very interesting. And like wind hex machines and those kind of machines do seem to do things. And I'm used to them. I've seen those kind of things. Like production of, I met the fellow in France who was, I think it was France, I forget his name, but he was with scientists that were examining the crop circles. And apparently it was done with some kind of microwave machinery. That's what he said, which is intriguing. Well, kind of a wind hex effect, I suppose. But anyway, that could be. You can manipulate vortexes with microwave energy and ELF and VLF radio frequencies. That's kind of known stuff. So if you got VLF, inter VLF and vortexes and unusual things like that, you can do a lot of stuff with the transmitters or and well as the receivers. Hence my interest in VLF and ELF radio and transmitters. Quite interesting stuff. Sometimes they live a little past in the grass, these weird things. So, but the Navy ship for creating different situations, we're playing with it, and we go back to Victor Schauberger and his vortexes. And others going into vortex technology, they were onto something, but unfortunately, it's written off as gobbledygook. That's kind of sad, isn't it? And the Navy ships, well, sure, they need to have fog and that kind of thing around them. So they have these whirling things and weird little devices like this. Some of them are actually quite small. Some are pretty large. It's an experimental thing that was going on for quite a while in the 70s, 80s, 90s, actually. And it does work. Seen it myself with what I was doing. So these kind of energies, you got to really respect them, or else you get knocked off your feet, or you get nailed with something. Because they're very unique. They're part of the quantum fluctuation, the quantum energy source, whatever you want to call it. Dr. Franklin E. Mead knows what it is. Dr. Peter Kokoshnik knew what it was. As they tapped into it, you can look those names up if you want. Plus others I know have tapped into this stuff. No, I don't think the Hutchison effect is related because it has created weird stuff in the air. as well as other things. And according to Canadian scientists from the Defense Department, Dr. Lauren Kuhn, Dr. Loken, Dr. Harold Wilson knew that I was tapping into a source of low level uranium ore that extracted the energy needed to create the effects. Okay? That you probably don't understand. But there are psychological factors as well that are part of nature that you can tap into, and it happens. It's very interesting. I have high respects for it. It's just like, no, I'm not going to brag about it. I'm not going to do anything weird with it because I get punched out or something, I have high respect for this stuff. My God. Unfortunately, most people don't. The Japanese scientists were quite into this quite a bit, and they had a replica laboratory in Hiroshima City, where I was, and saw some of the weird stuff that was going on. And speaking about ball lightning, that happened there too. But it was massive coils at super high frequency. That was a fluke. Plasma ball, if you want to call it, or bead balls. They hold a lot of energy, and you don't want to get hit with one of those. The way to control it is with corona rings and electrostatic shielding around it, much like magnetic fields for antimatter and that kind of thing, which Los Alamos is developing anti-gravity with metallic hydrogen, anti-hydrogen production, anti-proton production, anti-water. I mean, I read the Department of Defense's whole thing on it, 1983 already, so they're progressing pretty good with their antimatter experiments. It takes a lot of money to make a small amount of it, too. But they were doing interesting stuff with it, so it's fascinating stuff. So luckily I was privileged to read the DESY documents from Godrew Taylor and on this SBIR program since early 80s up to 2005, I think it was. A lot of support in a lot of things, so you have all the agencies involved. You got DARPA, you got the Pentagon people, the Air Force, all these different agencies. Still got some of the files, by the way. So, that's interesting, how to create these things. And you got to be damn careful, like I had to be careful after that several events. But you want to learn about that, study George Jack Houck, a good friend of mine. Study Dr. Robert Forward, Thomas E. Bearden, Ken Shoulders, Dr. Kokoshnig, Dr. Hal Pudop, Dr. William Tiller, Dr. Elizabeth Roger, and a few dozen others I have known. Do study what they have written. Dr. Robert Jen. You got to have high respect for this and ignore anybody that starts to brag about it or gets involved, because you're going to have a vortex on your hand that's going to be a bit nasty, as Ken would say. So that's kind of what I'm talking about today in video world. I kind of liked my little CIA for Kids skit, because there's a whole new generation of young folks coming up, and they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. No disrespect to you hobbits out there. I respect you, little fellows. But really, you're into stuff that doesn't really work. The basis foundation for everything is back in time, okay? A vacuum tube does these things. It was called a valve. Then you run along up to a transistor, a valve. Then you get to semiconductors, micro transistors, same thing, valve. Plus a host of other millions of other things related to all this stuff. So learn. I'm learning something new every day. I don't know what the hell's going on. You know, I work on this and work on that. Oh, an Elgin lathe. Okay, well that's intriguing. I didn't know that. Or an R390A receiver. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Or ANFR59. Oh, really? It has that in it? That meets adjustment, so I have to be always on my toes to fix things and learn about them. So most of my time is on either as Google search or YouTube search or eBay searching for things I can get a bargain on. Geez. And I have won some things that are good super bargains with supportive sellers that just, well, you can have it. You just pay for shipping and send it to you. Very kind. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind. So I got a bunch of RBA 5 series receivers in mint condition refurbished at the naval yards. They're here. I think I showed it in another video. I'm getting more. They slowly build up a network around the world, and they very helpful people on eBay, sellers and supporters, old timers too. Very intriguing people. I mean, they're very helpful. I avoid all the racketeering people. You know, who want $1 million for some stupid thing, for something. You know, it's psychopathic PayPal in the mind God stuff. Anyway, back to parapsychological events. So, had correspondence with gentleman in England, Uri Geller. He is an interesting guy. We wrote emails and he sent me a card talking about psychological things like metal bending and things that happen. So if you can tap in somehow with radio or your mind, you might make contact with an alien race. Maybe. Again, the hydrogen line is an area where scientists listened for any intelligent stuff coming in, and there was a wow signal and a few other signals which are classified. As well as stand by for my next video, which I'm going to do on time. Out of nowhere came these equations. And I'll put it in the description, the equations, along with reference material. Oh, no, sorry, no, I'll have to look. Apparently it's classified, but you judge. So I'm going to go get a cigarette. How long has this been broadcasting? Now for it. Oh, 23. Oh, not too bad. Not too bad, Major. Get a cigarette, will you? Oh, back I am. They go awkward, still bright. But you have to be pretty in tune to work on things that there's no instruction books on them. At least I feel I am. Hmm. Call it bragging. I don't know the answer. But we got a little friend here. I think it's Evio's little buddy. Hmm. Also, I have high respect for animals. All animals, basically. I never harmed an animal, never was interested in hunting or all that crap or even fishing. No, thank you. It's disgusting for me, from my point of view. So, we can delude ourselves by saying, oh, well, I had telepathic communication with Joe Blow the alien, but no, I don't think that's possible. Once you talk about it, that kind of stuff goes another way that it's not, doesn't work for you anymore. So once you start bragging about it, it ain't gonna work. So some people are so deluded they think they're incarnated aliens or something like that. No, don't forget I studied a lot of psychology, and self-delusional people are quite unique unto themselves. Right? Right. There are some people emailing me by different names, Om something or whatever. They think they're an alien, they're a reincarnated alien. Sorry. No, I don't think so. No, no. See, aliens are a lot different than what you think they are. They're way out there somewhere, and some people can be slightly uh, can take in something. But again, from A to B, you have either radio or interdimensional subtime warp kind of thing, or interdimensional instantaneous transportation kind of stuff way beyond comprehension. Maybe Dr. George Gamow, a cosmologist, would understand that. Or George Jack Houck, who I've written to many times and got some fantastic answers because I had a very, my ex-girlfriend, Yin, I could see through her eyes from Vancouver to Vienna. It's kind of strange, and I had to write Jack Houck about it, and he sent me a letter explaining what could be happening. So, GUT. Because there's a situation like that that exists. But you have to respect it and don't brag about it. Because this is a big universe, and there are advanced and non advanced civilizations out there. Let's get primitive, okay? The first message probably was the first atomic test sent out a EMP pulse or electromagnetic pulse. It was picked up a long time ago by somebody. Most UAPs are experimental devices in the labs, in actual laboratories, basically. Luckily, I had information given to me by certain friends that worked at aerospace companies over the years and explained it in great detail by letters or by emails. And time distortion is quite feasible because I have emails in that regards which I copied them and still have them with the name of the Russian scientists. And my own experiences with time dilation happening a few times. Like, oh, I thought I was going to be here and I am here too early or something like that. What proof do I have? The people I'm with, usually. So, CIA for kids, huh? Yeah, well, that used to exist. 2000. But I got a lot of good reports from them, right? Right. Okay, so I covered that yesterday. I'm talking a blue streak? Oh, yeah, sure. So, how many of you heard of Rene Louis Vallée of France? Another scientist friend of mine. Okay. Letters were common between myself and him, along with Andrea Sakharov, along with Dr. P.T. Pappas of Greece, professor of mathematics and physics, who visited me in New Westminster, British Columbia, Canada with his wife. I think Yin might remember that. I don't know. But anyway, there was a lot of communications I've had with people around the planet. It interests me, and Star Trek people and NASA people are usually friends with those people I mentioned. Because I met NASA people at 1997, and many emails later after those TV shows aired and communications. So they are great, really interested in this kind of thing. So, ha, I find it fascinating. So, other things I've seen are black hole shadows along walls and other things that are kind of like spooky stuff. Not for me, it's just natural, okay? And I've witnessed mostly everything, okay? Especially in the adventure we had in the abandoned Woodland School in New Westminster, British Columbia, Canada. We saw things existing in 3 dimension. I was with Lama Lee and Corinne. We saw it all together and we wrote up letters about it. You have a spinning thing like that, okay? Really fast. Stretched out like that, tapering at the ends. It's spinning in the middle with a bit of light, like the same as the sun, okay? It's moving like this in midair. There we go. And it's swirling like that and moving around with a light like the sun, same color, but not the same intensity. And Lemus, Lee, and Corinne say, "What's that?" And I said, "I don't know. It's something. I have no idea, but it's fascinating. I'm not going to touch it." I put my hand out, but I felt a cool wind coming from it. But no, I don't think I go that far. It was fascinating. That's just one incident. I've had other instances like that. Because I said before, in the beginning, I have high respects for this kind of stuff. I'm not going to attempt it. I'm not going to try and manipulate it or that kind of thing, okay? It was a cool wind with kind of like fog around it and spinning, and the fog was spinning too. A message, I don't know, but the building is well known for this kind of thing. There's been people in there that filmed and got stuff that you wouldn't believe. Woodland School. I was in there. I think I could remove some doorknobs and that kind of thing from there, and because of brass and all that kind of cool stuff. But I wound up throwing him out because he seemed to have a bad energy to them. So I threw him in the trash. Other places. Oh, there's many of them. Other things and other events. Let me think of something. There was some entities coming in that want to communicate. Not when I'm sleeping or that kind of thing, but just in buildings or old areas. Even there was a slight presence in HMCS Columbia where they were doing the wind hex stuff up on the superstructure actually. But a very limited. I didn't even know. I thought, well, somebody's playing around with some kind of wind detector, but no, it's something else. So anyway, I wonder where that piece is. I got somewhere around. Manufactured by Rayasan, I think, or Bendix. Hmm. Hello. Look who arrived here. Ooh.